Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Not many programs across the country that are hotter and have more momentum on the recruiting trail than Billy Napier in the Florida Gators, and that does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. A massive visit weekend last Saturday against LSU. We saw the commitments that came in after that. You got another massive opportunity to get a ton of top targets on campus this weekend against Ole Miss, and one of the things that I think is a driving factor in terms of these elite high school kids looking at Florida and say, hey, maybe I want to go play my football there is the opportunity to play early. Now, what's the difference between Florida and a lot of the other Power Four programs that are recruiting these kids? You look at Florida and say the young talent is not only playing real good, they're playing real early. You got a true freshman quarterback in DJ Lagway. And Jaden Ball at the running back position looks to be one of the best running backs in the SEC as a true freshman. You look on the defensive side of the football, you talk about guys like Miles Graham. I think a lot of this young talent's looking at Florida and say, hey, this is an opportunity to come in and have the opportunity to make an impact early on in my college football career, where there's a lot of other programs that just aren't offering that right now. Want to get into some of my favorite names that will be on campus. We're going to focus in on that 2025 class. If we wanted to look at the 2026 class, it's a laundry list of guys, but we're going to focus in on some of those prospects that Florida is trying to flip late in the process. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Florida fans, it's been a blast talking this program, specifically on the recruiting trail the last couple of weeks. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it's been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I think much more importantly, it's going to be a busy next couple of weeks for Florida on the recruiting trail in the transfer portal. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start with five-star wide receiver Dallas Wilson. It doesn't get much easier to sell Florida fans than Dallas Wilson. 6'3", 205, 11-second 100-meter dash. I mean, the size-speed combination, he is just a matchup nightmare. You cannot find many defensive backs that can run with Dallas Wilson and then deal with the physicality at the catch point Dallas Wilson has. And one of the things that, stands out to me the most about Dallas Wilson, this kid is extremely smooth for that size. Normally when you're talking about 6'3", 200-pound wide receivers at the high school ranks, they're just kind of linear athletes. And they're just going to work vertically down the field. Dallas Wilson can do all of that, but he is extremely smooth in terms of creating separation. What he does after the catch is phenomenal, not only in terms of making people miss, but he's a big body for these defensive backs to bring down. And Dallas Wilson and Jamie French seem to be the two top targets in the wide receiver room that Florida's gunning for. Jamie French will be back at Texas. If you can get one of these cats and you kind of combine that with Vernell Brown, really, really good wide receiver class. And, Dallas Wilson's been a wild one. He committed to Oregon extremely early in the process, has taken his visits. It always seemed like if there was an in-state school that was going to flip Dallas Wilson, it was going to be Miami. That seems to have, changed over the last couple of weeks. It seems like Florida would be the in-state school that's in the driver's seat with this recruitment. Now, another really intriguing name that's on campus, and again, Florida has taking advantage. And recruiting is a cutthroat business. Like, if there's an opportunity to really grab a stranglehold in the state of Florida, you got to take it. And with Florida State struggling the way they are, Florida has just gone to Florida State consistently and taken some of these commitments. Byron Lewis, really intriguing running back from American Heritage. You look at Byron Lewis and what kind of running back he is, more of that, like, I'm going to attack the line of scrimmage and get downhill, which I think better translates to the collegiate landscape. You see a lot of running backs who are elite kind of just go out and play backyard football, and they're just bigger, stronger, faster than everyone who's trying to tackle them. So you kind of develop some bad habits. Byron Lewis is a no-nonsense running back. He just wants to attack the line of scrimmage. He invites contact, a really thick lower half with really good contact balance. Now, Byron Lewis might lack that straight line vertical home run hitting speed, but he kind of more than makes up with it with not only the physicality in which he runs with and the contact balance, but really short area quicks. He's not the fastest in a straight line, but when you're talking about running backs, you care a little bit more about the short area, right? The cuts, the making people miss, bouncing off tackles. That's where Byron Lewis really shows up. He's kind of a muscle hamster, 5'11". He looks a little shorter than that, maybe 5'10", thick lower half, low center of gravity, rarely goes down at first contact. Those are some of the small stuff. He might not be the flashiest running back in the 2025 class, but I think he's a damn good running back that you'll look at him and say, hard to see him not being a relied upon running back for multiple years at the Power 4 program that he chooses. Florida getting him on campus. We've seen Florida flip a couple Florida State Seminoles over the last couple of days. We'll see if they can do it again with Byron Lewis. Now, going over to the defensive side of the football, let's talk about my humble I guess this will be kind of like my guy, I guess, in the 2025 class, and that's Myan Charles. The sky's the limit with Myan Charles. Quite frankly, there's not many defensive linemen that have a higher ceiling than Myan Charles in this 2025 class. The flashes that you see on the film are next level stuff. I mean, at 6'4", 300 pounds, he is extremely explosive off the line of scrimmage. He's got some big time power in the hands. I think the one thing you're looking at is probably a little bit inconsistent as a football player right now. It's kind of a roller coaster of the ride in terms of the reps that you see on the film. But man, like the highs, those are intriguing. And again, we talk about this all the time. When you're recruiting high school kids, go bet on the highs. Go bet on a guy that if he figures it out, is going to be an All-American caliber guy. I think Myan Charles has All-American caliber traits written all over him. Now it's kind of the question of, can he get developed, and can you kind of just bring that consistency out of this kid? I'm a tradesy guy. I want, especially when you're talking about big bodies, like give me the big bodies who are real athletes. Myan Charles is that kind of dude. I'd be fired up for Florida, and I'd be fired up to see just what his development looks like over the next couple of years. Another really intriguing cat that, as a Michigan fan, I was hoping he'd come to Michigan this weekend, but he's going to stay in Florida, go visit Gainesville. Javon Hilson, kind of a wild ride for him as well, committed to Alabama. Backed off his commitment when Nick Saban retired, commits to Florida State, backs off his commitment again. Texas is kind of the real contender here, but Florida's going to get Javon Hilson back on campus. This probably needs to add a little bit more weight and physicality to his game to play at the collegiate level. But in terms of an athlete, in terms of how explosive this kid is, it's there. And I think what you really like about Javon Hilson is he can win from a multitude of different ways. I think he mostly likes to win with his athleticism. His get off the line of scrimmage, really, really impressive. And although kind of an undersized edge rusher right now, has some real pop in his hands. Now, you want to see him hold up a little bit better in the run game at times. But, man, Javon Hilson, in terms of rushing the passer, pinning his ears back on those early, third and long situations, that's a guy. And again, when you talk about good defense, if you can get after the passer, you're in a pretty good spot. I think this kid has the ability to be an elite pass rusher at the college football level. Last one on defense I want to talk about, Kellen Wy. Kind of a late riser and really getting some buzz within the Florida schools, and rightfully so. Big time trait, 6'4", 225. Now, he's got to fill out the frame. He's a slender framed linebacker right now, and probably will take – he's not a Myles Graham. Like Myles Graham, when we talked about Myles Graham committing to Florida, you're like, yeah, that's a guy that's going to play very early for Florida. Kellen Wy, I'd be surprised, especially with how loaded this Florida linebacker room is, and especially with how loaded it's going to be in 2025. Would be surprised if he plays early for Florida, but it's okay, because one, he's not going to have – Florida has the ability to go grab a developmental guy with Kellen Wy, because you got a bunch of young linebackers that are going to play a lot of football for you over the next couple of years. You stash Kellen Wy away for a year, see what he looks like in 2026. This is the modern era off-ball backer, in my opinion. One, he can blitz really well, and Florida likes to send their linebackers on pass rushes. But I think more importantly, you look at the responsibilities that off-ball linebackers have in the modern era. It's, hey, we got to carry tight ends up the seam. We got to go play in space and tackle running backs in the flat. We got to spy the quarterback. The off-ball linebacker in this era of college football, you got to be an athlete. You got to be able to operate in space, and 6'4", 225 with his movement skills, he's a really good athlete. Now, you got to put on some weight so you can kind of deal with some of the more physicality in the tackle box. If you can do that, this kid can be really good. And I mean, who said he's 6'4"? He's got plenty of frame to put on some weight. So Kellen Wy, another guy I'm taking a look at. The last one I'll talk about here, Jari Medlock, offensive tackle, kind of a confusing evaluation for me. Quite frankly, his best film is as a defensive lineman. He'll play offensive line at the SEC level. Definitely needs a couple of years to get developed. But again, not a bad tackle to stash away and see what he can be in 2026 or 2027. Florida's got a lot of momentum. And it does seem like a lot of this young talent wants to go play in Gainesville. I think, one, you get the opportunity to play for a premier program in the SEC, but more importantly, a lot of the other premier programs in the SEC, they don't let you get on the field all that early. Florida's got that selling point of, hey, you can come in, and a lot of these guys, you can play early in your Florida Gator career. And I think that is really helping Florida to close out late on the recruiting trail. We'll sign out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.